Hello, welcome back to my channel and welcome to the JSDoc episode. Shock horror. We're going to talk about JSDoc. All right, I want to see whether you like JSDoc or you think that it's a terrible idea. But I found it very useful. And this video in particular is from Mark. Hi, Mark. Mark is my colleague who is just learning about JSDoc and how to adopt it in the projects that we use. Why do we use JSDoc? Well, we've got quite a lot of skill in our team, but they're mostly PHP developers, and they're used to seeing doc blocks. If you know PHP, that's kind of your code comments. Then so we wanted to adopt JSDoc because it's quite similar, but also the compile step. It's so annoying to have compile everything with TSC or whatever you're going to use. And we didn't want to have that extra overhead that people had to learn before they get started with types in JavaScript. So that's what we adopted it. You might have a different reason. But anyway, what I found is that because we're using JSDoc, it's self-documenting code. We know what our code does, and we can guarantee that it's type safe. All right. It's also providing us a foundation for testing because we know the types of the data, the structure of it. We can provide a good solid foundation for testing our JavaScript code. It's more accessible. As I said, there's a lot of skill in our team, but we don't have many JavaScript specialists. So we use JSDoc to be able to ensure that our types are carried through our code base entirely. All right. And it's more accessible. And you can still use TypeScript types. Did you know that? Yes, you can. You can still use TypeScript types in JSDoc. I'll show you how in a minute. All right. How do we use the JSDoc? How does it work? Um, sorry, the type hinting is not the highlighting is not great here, but here we have a doc block. It's a JSDoc block. It's if you've got one slash followed by two asterisks, that usually denotes a JSDoc segment on your page. Okay, I've got a parameter which is the argument in my function stuff, as you see, I've called it stuff here, and it's a number. Actually, the syntax highlighting is a bit rubbish, so let me show you how it's implemented in the real world. Now, in my theme, which I think is Night Owl from Sarah Drasner, it shows up here as a highlight in a different color. So I can clearly see that that is the URL here. And then I've got the comment here. That's an optional comment you could just use just to describe that parameter a little bit more if you want to. And as you see there, it's highlighted quite nicely, so you can see exactly what's going on with your code. And here's the return type as well. All right, and a comment about that. And then that gets picked up as you go along. Now, this is a bit more complex parameters. Now here we've got a custom event. And as you might know, only custom events have access to this detail object, which we've got stuff inside of it. All right, so how do we type that? Well, your browser will know that this is a custom event type. It's already got that built in. Not your browser, your code editor, your IDE, whatever you're using. And then we're passing in this parameter to that, which is of the type number. Now, if you've done TypeScript, you'll recognize this, I'm sure, because these little chevrons either side mean it's a generic type. Don't get too hung up on that term. It just means this is the outer object, all right? And inside the object, you've got a custom data structure inside of it, all right? Generic types, very useful. All right, but it can, oh, I added another one about this. So this is like a nested object inside of the custom event, all right? Now, things can get a little bit on the complicated side. Now we've got another thing inside of that, which is another object with the result parameter, which is a number inside there. This is getting untidy, and I don't like it, all right? Because this is wrapping onto two lines. It's not easy to see what's going on. So we could write a type definition above here and then call it, but that's messy and I don't like it. What I much prefer is this clean syntax here. So now we've abstracted the type away altogether and we've imported it from this file called types. So this is a lot tidier, isn't it? Because I'm sure that if you're coming into this code as somebody new hasn't seen it before, what you're going to want to know is what's going on, what the code is actually doing. And then as a secondary concern, you're probably going to be worried about the types. So here you can clearly see there's a separation between those two things. It allows you to see it a lot more clearly what's going on. All right, so my event here type lives inside this file which we've imported. Let's take a look at that file. And it's a types.d.ts file. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. We're using TypeScript here, but we're not actually compiling it. All right. You don't need to. Your IDE, VS Code in particular, will recognize this file is a TypeScript file, but won't scream at you to compile it and all the rest of it. It will understand this is just your interfaces, all right, your TypeScript types that relate to your JSDoc types, all right? So you can define your types here, and this is an extending the custom event type, and then you can have your objects and you define your types within that. And because you've exported it, you can then re-import it here. Okay, that makes sense, right? You see your types there, you can put it there, right, and use it. All right, so then that keeps things nice and clean and tidy because your types can be defined much more succinctly in a types.d.definition file, and you can see exactly where they are. When you need to worry about your types, they're all together, and also they're shareable, so you can pass them around to other different methods that you're using, different modules, and of course you can import them from a node module, an npm module if you want, and you can share them across different projects. So that's why we use JSDoc and how we use it. I'll show you a real world example before we wrap up here. So this is just getting, it's a fetch function. It's getting some data as a string and then passing it and returning it out. And as you can see, if you hover around on VS Code here, it knows exactly what's going on. Isn't that handy? So it knows that's a string. It knows that that is of the past result type, okay? The only reason I've got that here is because it's not exported from here. So I've had to copy it, but it works perfectly well, all right? And I've used JSDoc types within this complex project, all right? And it's worked fine, and it's typed very safely. You know exactly what's going on in this project. So that's how we've used it. Again, another generic prom type here, which is of a promise type, because this is an async code, and we're returning either the entry itself or null if we don't have one. All right, great. I hope that's been useful. So haven't we seen that JSDoc actually, even though it's not TypeScript, it does share a lot of commonality with it. It just means you don't have to have that compile step. You can get started quite quickly and easily with it, but you can still have type safe code. And again, the types don't get in the way of the code either, separate from it. So I hope that's been useful. Let me know what you think in the comments, and thanks for watching.